Welcome back to the channel. We're back with our Spider-Man Commander deck profile. Today with Superior Spider-Man. For 2, a blue and a black, you get a 4/4 with Mind Swap. You may have Superior Spider-Man enters a copy of a creature card in a graveyard, except it has the same name as Superior Spider-Man, and it's a 4/4 Spider-Human in addition to its other types. When you do, exile that card as well. So, we have plenty of ways to make sure we're milling out our opponents in order to make sure we're having Superior Spider-Man enter as the best thing out of anyone's graveyard, not just our own. Um, Not too familiar with the Super Spider-Man lore. This might be the one where he swapped minds with Dr. Octopus, and that's the reason for a mind swap. Looks like he doesn't take names based upon the art, though. Um, and that's going to reflect what we're trying to do as we're trying to mill out our opponents, burn our opponents for milling, take everything out of our opponent's graveyard, all that fun type of stuff. But that's just a general overview of the deck. Let's get into it card by card. Starting us off, we have an Arcane Signet for some mana. Mesmeric Orb as our first mill card, making our opponents mill every turn, anytime they want to untap their lands, untap their Arcane Signets. That's all milling them cards now. Mind Crank, whenever an opponent loses life, that player mills that many cards. Sometimes you could convince everyone to team up on the life gain player. So it's like, we'll never get rid of them because they have such a high life total. Maybe we have to attack them for that 100 life instead and mill them for that many. But overall, super cool card, allowing us milling more cards, allowing us more options in our opponent's graveyard to copy with Superior Spider-Man. River Turn Monument. This way, when we do eventually get half of our opponent's deck into the graveyard, we can mill them for the other half, and when we're not, we just mill them for 2, which gives us still more options for Superior Spider-Man then. Soul Ring for some additional mana. Sword of Body and Mind. Whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, create a 2/2 Green Wolf. That's exactly what we're going for, nothing else. But you also mill your opponent for 10 cards, allowing you more options to seal Superior Spider-Man. Also, you got a little bit of protection and a little bit of stat boost, but that's not the important part. Talisman of Dominance for some additional mana. Water Crystal, some cost reduction, also making our opponent mill for more cards anytime they mill cards. Also an option to make our opponent mill for some cards. But overall, milling 4 more does give us 4 more options anytime our opponent does mill some cards, so helpful for us there. Wayfarer's Wobble for an additional source of mana. For our creatures, we have Body Double. Enters a copy of something in one of your opponent's graveyards. So, having your opponent's best thing twice could be useful, unless it's a legendary creature. Then you copy their second best thing, or the best thing out of someone else's graveyard. Bruvac, Grandiloquent. Whenever an opponent mill 1 or more cards, they mill twice that many instead. We're milling our opponent for half their deck. Sometimes we're milling them for 10 cards sometimes. So, doubling up our options that we could steal with Superior Spider-Man. Quite useful for this deck. Consuming Aberration, power and toughness equals the number of cards in your opponent's graveyards. That's plural. That means at all opponents' graveyards. And whenever you cast a spell, each opponent reveals cards on the top of their library until they reveal a land. Put those cards into a graveyard. That includes the land into the graveyard. So your opponent who's been missing land drops, yeah, we're getting in their way quite a bit. But overall, just a really strong creature that we could keep swinging on our opponent with. Maybe if our opponent's only playing blue and green, we could give it that protection so we could swing in on him even easier. Demir Doppelganger, page where you exile a target creature from a graveyard, becomes a copy of that and gains this ability. So it still allows us to keep on copying other things, but all those options we have to steal from our opponent's graveyards, we now get a second choice. Dustmantle Guildmage, whenever a card is put into a graveyard from anywhere this turn, put that player loses life, or target player puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. I don't think that's worth 4 mana for a secondary ability, but if we're milling our opponent for like half their deck, and we could pay that 3, that could be the end of the game for everyone. And, well, actually, it's in opponent's. I don't know, actually. Be some weird wording on that one. Evil Twin, another way to become a copy of a creature on the battlefield this time though, rather than in the graveyard. So if our opponent did manage to get one of their good things onto the battlefield, we still have a way to become that as well. Lazav, Demir Mastermind, really similar commander to Superior Spider-Man. I think I like Lazav just a little bit better because it could keep on changing who he is. Superior Spider-Man is only when he enters, you choose something and you're stuck with that choice. Only thing with Lazav is he doesn't exile the card, so that's where we do get a little bit of benefit with Superior Spider-Man. Mirko and also this is 2 blue, 2 black, whereas you get 2 generic with a Superior Spider-Man, so you could get it out turn 2 with the Soul Ring. Mirko Vask, Mind Drinker, flying. When this deals combat damage to a player, that player reveals cards on the top of their library until they reveal 4 land cards. Put those cards into their graveyard. That includes lands. Once again, this deck very much hinders the opponent who's trying to play who's missing their land drops. Nemesis of Reason. Whenever this creature attacks, defending player mills 10 cards. This just keeps allowing us more and more options to copy there with Superior Spider-Man. More and more things that we could have fun playing ourselves. Night Howler. Enchant creatures +X, where X is the number of creature cards in all graveyard. When we're milling our opponent for that many cards, that's going to be a strong creature. Notion Thief. Whenever a player would draw a card except the first one each turn, you get to draw that card instead. I mean, we're already making so that our opponent can't play the game in the first place. Sorry, it doesn't have cards to cast from their deck in the first place. So let's take some cards in their hand now. Phoenix, God of Deception. As long as your devotion of blue and black is less than 7, this isn't a creature. Creatures you control have tap. Target player puts the top X cards of the library equal to this creature's toughness. That could be a lot of cards. We have Notion Thief milling them for 1, Night Howler milling them for 0. But no, sorry, Night Howler's power and toughness are equal to the number of creature cards in all graveyards. So, say if your opponent had 10, that's 10 more cards you're milling them for. If you even make this into a creature, that's 7 more. Ruin Crab, in order to mill our opponents for Druid cards anytime we have a land enter, which we're trying to do every turn. So Druid cards every turn, 9 more options for Superior Spider-Man Spiel. Shadowkin, at the beginning of your upkeep, each player mills 3 cards. You may exile a creature card from among the cards exiled this way. This card could become a copy of that. Same ability as Superior Spider-Man. We like that ability. Let's keep on using that ability. Spark Double as another copy spell. Sir Conrad the Grim. We're milling our opponents for a lot of cards. Sir Conrad doesn't care how the creature card was put into the graveyard. He just cares that a creature card was put into the graveyard. So if we mill our opponent for half their decks, they mill 20 cards. Sorry, they each mill 10 creatures. That's 30 damage to each opponent, because it's 1 damage to each opponent whenever a creature's put into a graveyard. Mind Scanner, way to mill our opponents for 10, giving 10 more options for Superior Spider-Man, potentially double that, potentially 4 more. All the ways to just mill out our opponents. And, even if they don't have anything good to steal, we still have ways to win the game just by milling them. And then we have Rexiel, the Risen Deep. Island Walk, Swamp Walk, making basically unblockable for most decks. Deals combat damage to a player, casts a target instant sorcery card from the player's graveyard without paying its mana cost. If a spell we put into a graveyard, exile instead. Maybe you take their extra turn spell that they were planning to play on you. Corral the Void, a way to make sure when your creatures attack, you get to steal something from your opponent's graveyard. Because what's better than taking something from your opponent's graveyard? It's just having a copy all on your own. Control Magic. You control enchanted creature. Once again, why become a copy of your opponent's stuff when you could just become your opponent's stuff? Drown Secrets. You may cast blue spell. Target player. So whenever you cast a blue spell, okay, that makes more sense. Target player puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. We have a lot of blue spells. That's a lot of mill. That's a lot of options for Superior Spider-Man to copy. Memory Erosion. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, player puts the top 2 cards of their library in the graveyard. If we have Water Crystal, they mill 6. And that's just a lot more options for Superior Spider-Man. Phyrexian Arena for that additional draw power. Psychic Corrosion. Whenever you draw a card, which we're trying to do, target opponent mills 2. Keep on milling 2. Keep on milling 2. On to the second half of the deck. We have an offer you can't refuse for a counterspell. Arcane Denial as a counterspell. Counterspell is, you guessed it, a counterspell. Dark Ritual for that extra mana. This way we could get Superior Spider-Man out turn 2 in theory. Didn't say please. Counter target spell is Controller Mills 3. More options there for Superior Spider-Man along with our counterspell. We like both those things. Demir Charm. Choose 1. Counter target sorcery spell. Or destroy target creature with power 2 or less. Or look at the top 3 cards of the target player's library. One of them back and the rest into the graveyard. Let them keep that 1 land. Maybe they are flooded already. And put their 2 best things in their graveyard to steal later. Factor Fiction. Get 2 piles. Decide what you want. Your opponents decide which goes in what pile, and you decide what you get. Memory Plunderer. even if this was just like, look at the top 5, choose one. It's still, I'd say, worth a card. Memory Plunder. You could cast an instant sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard without paying its mana cost. Yeah, we want to be taking our opponent's things. We'll not just take their creatures, we'll take everything. Perplex, counter target spell unless its controller discards their hand. You know, our opponent's going to tend not to want to discard their hand, and if that spell's that worth it to them, we could take those things in their graveyard and use it for our own. Pangify for some removal. Psychic Strike for another counterspell, along with a little bit of mill on top of that counterspell. Rapid Hybridization. We want to make sure we have plenty of sources of removal and counterspell. This way, when we are countering and destroying, we can then copy those creature spells that are trying to cast. Thought Collapse, counter another spell. An Oracle that player mills. Visions of Beyond, draw a card. If a graveyard has 20 more cards, draw 3 cards. It's not hard for a graveyard 20 more cards in this deck. Then for our Planeswalkers, we have Jace, Memory Adept, -7, any number of target players, draw 20 cards. If we get that up there, our opponent made a great mistake. But also, a little bit of draw power helps us out with this deck, because we're going to need it. And then target player puts the top 10 cards of their library into their graveyard for 0. That one just on its own is going to help us out a lot. Jace, Perfected Mind, another way to mill our opponents for a lot of cards, 3 times X. If we can shut down one of their cards, and target player mills 3, we draw some cards, and then mill them for a lot. Breach the Multiverse, another way to mill our opponents for 10, giving us 10 more options to seal Superior Spider-Man, and 1 option from each player's graveyard to seal just based on this card. Cruel Somnifage, power and toughness equals the number of creature cards in all graveyards. Yes, that's all graveyards. That means that this is going to be a really strong 2-1. 2-2. Because we're only on 2 things in each player's graveyard. That's right. But no, you can't wake up. Target player mills 4. Potentially that's 4 creatures already. That's already a 2-mana 4/4. Extract from Darkness. Each player mills 2 cards. Then you put a creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Once again, we're trying to steal our opponent's creatures. This does just that. Fractured Sanity. In order to mill our opponents for 14. That's 14 more options for Superior Spider-Man to copy. Glimpse the Unthinkable. Target player mills 10 cards. That's 10 more options to copy, 10 more options to steal, 10 more options to mill our opponents out with. Jadora, Aristocratic Capital. Another card to mill our opponents for half their library. We can also make it a land, I guess. Sure. But no, you're really using it for that primary ability. Mill your opponent for half their deck. Half their deck is now yours to copy. Maddening Cacophony. Another way to mill our opponents for half their deck. These 2 plus Bruvac mills our opponents for their full deck, because this is half. He doubles it. That's the full. Because 2 times 1/2 is 1, which equals deck. Mind Funeral. Target opponent mills cards until I mill 4 lands. Once again, this one does something similar to each opponent, and you get to choose how many lands. Just be nice to the person missing their land drops. Otherwise, they could potentially get another land reanimate in order to take your opponent's best thing out of the graveyard. Rise of the Dark Realms in order to take all the creatures out of all the graveyards. I mean, unless they have the board wipe, you win next turn. Singularity Rupture, another way to mill opponents for half their deck, along with a board wipe while we're at it. Toxic Deluge for another board wipe. Traumatize, another way to mill opponent for half their library, double that up with Bruvac. Whispering Madness, each player discards their hand, draws cards equal to the number. Same as Windfall, they're basically the same card, just this one costs more because it has the cipher thing. But yeah, overall, I think this one's going to be a really fun commander. Like I said, Lazav's a little bit better, and I just enjoy mill because that's the type of person I am. But if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you like the video. If you want to see more like this, subscribe so you can stay tuned for future videos. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great day.